thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Jess and I'm one of the creative designers here at Sizzix, and today I want to showcase to you our brand new shrink plastic. So this is an extension of our current shrink plastic range. We have our clear, our printable, our black and our white, and these are 3 new colorways and 3 new finishes for our shrink plastic. So we have the gold, the rose gold and the silver, and they're all A4 size, the same as our other one, but they have this amazing glittery metallic finish, which is obviously perfect for festive periods or all year round, and you can make jewelry with these, you can add them to card fronts, and it's a lot of fun to play with. So I just wanted to show you guys what the plastic actually looks like. So it's actually quite a thin material, and it has a kind of glittery side on one side and then a kind of shiny side on the other. And you can print on this, so you can pop it through your printer. If you print on the kind of matte glittery side, you can stamp on it, you can use permanent markers on it, but the key thing is that when you apply heat and you shrink this down, it becomes a rigid material. So it's going to withstand if you're using it for things like jewelry in particular, but it's also going to be really prominent on the front of cards and things like that. So let me grab a couple of examples. So here is a card that I made for a save the date, and obviously I have printed on this, so I've popped that through my printer, and just for reference, this was the size that it was before. So obviously, hence the name shrink plastic, it shrinks down when you apply heat and it shrinks up to 40%. And then you get from this quite thin material that you probably would associate with a cardstock, with a thick cardstock, and then you shrink it down and you get this really rigid material. And if you're making things like jewelry or key rings or anything like that, it's obviously going to be weatherproof and things like that, opposed to something like a cardstock would be. And you obviously get this gorgeous glittery kind of opaque finish, which is beautiful. And then obviously we have it in the silver and the rose gold. So here's just an example of another card. So you can actually manipulate the plastic when it's slightly warm, and you can bend and shape it if you want to as well. So that's also a really good thing to note with this shrink plastic. So I've done that with these butterflies just by pinching them up slightly in the middle when they're warm, and then you get this gorgeous 3D effect, and they're really nice and rigid and sturdy. They're not going to bend or fold like a cardstock would. They're going to keep their shape, which is fantastic. Okay, so that is the rundown of the shrink plastic. I'm going to jump into the demo and I'm going to show you a full card and show you how it works and some tips and tricks surrounding our brand new shrink plastic. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you how to use the shrink plastic and how to apply it for a card make. And I'm going to use the gorgeous rose gold one because I didn't really show that one in the beginning. It's the same as the gold and silver with that shiny side on one side and then the kind of matte glittery side on the other. I'm going to print on this cardstock, so I'm going to roll it through my printer, and I'm actually going to make Scrabble tiles. So I've already cut one out, but you can see how I have popped my letters and printed them out. Obviously, bear in mind, Scrabble letters are a lot smaller than this. You have to think about the shrinkage, so it's going to shrink down to up to 40%. So I have gone and made them a little larger, knowing that they will shrink down. Now, when you're working with shrink plastic, you can cut them with framelits and you can cut them with big dies. So these are the 2 kind of dies that we recommend you using to cut your shrink plastic with. So framelits dies are kind of basic shapes. They're usually obviously squares, circles, hearts, that kind of thing. There's not really that intricacy that we have with thinlits dies. And then our big dies are also a little bit more basic shapes. So there's actually the butterflies that I use. Let me grab the card. The butterflies that I used for the silver card that I showed you, those were these butterflies on this Bigs die, because Bigs can cut through multiple layers of quite thick material. And they're normally a little bit more basic shapes with less intricacy. So that means your shrink plastic is going to cut way better if you're using these two types of die cuts, okay? So just for reference, I wanted to point that out. And I'm going to use the framelits to cut mine. So I'm going to use the third smallest square. And what I would do is I'm just going to cut that down. I'm going to make a name out of my Scrabble letters. So I am using one of my gorgeous friend's little girls on the front of the card, and her name is Poppy. So I'm going to use her name, that's why those letters are there. So what I would do is I'd just place that on to my shrink plastic with my die cut piece, and you want to cut it just like you would a framelit or a thinlit with the same sandwich. So your base platform and then your 2 clear plates, and you can just roll it through the machine just like you would any other Sizzix die. And then you will have your square all cut out like so. So they cut really perfectly with those simple shapes. So that's just something to sort of take note of and keep in mind when you are choosing your die to cut your shrink plastic with, because you're going to get that really nice clean line with those simple shapes like that square. Okay, and then the only thing that I've done from there is I just used a corner cutter and I cut down my corners just to make them slightly rounded and a little bit more like a Scrabble piece. So from there we can now shrink it down. So for that, you're going to want our shrink plastic accessories kit. Now that comes with the circular silicone mat, this grid, and then you also have this silicone tool that has this flat piece, and this is going to work for kind of stomping and flattening your shrink plastic when it's warm. Okay, so if you just place your shrink plastic piece on top of the silicone mat underneath that grid, and then you take the heat tool. So this is our dual speed heat tool, and it has 2 settings. So you have a high setting and a low setting. You can use it on either, but the key is you want to keep it kind of moving and rotating so the heat is evenly distributed, okay? And it takes a few seconds to heat up, and you'll start to see the shrink plastic shrink. Okay, it takes a little time to get warm, but just be patient. And there we go, you can see it start shrinking. It's obviously pushing up the grid mat as it changes size. And don't worry, as it shrivels, it will start to go a little 3D, and then it'll start to flatten out by itself. So lift that up slightly. I can take that off and make sure it's all properly heated. And then I can take that tool and just stomp it down. And what I like to do then is I like to turn it over, because actually some of this bit still needs a little time. If you're doing this, you can just use the other side of that tool just to keep it in the same place so it's not moving around. And then give it a nice firm press, and it's going to make it nice and flat. Okay. And there you have your Scrabble tile. So I've done multiples of mine, so I've got them all here and shrunk them down, so I'm going to eventually have the name Poppy. Okay, so they're all going to be exactly the same size because I've cut them from exactly the same square framelit, and then you get this really nice hard plastic, and it's going to be really nice and prominent on the front of your card, particularly if you're doing something and replicating something that's already like a plastic, like a Scrabble tile. That's going to work great on the front of your cards, or if you're making jewellery or anything like that. So from there, the only thing that I've gone and done is I've added some of our luster wax. So because these shrink plastics come in rose gold, gold and silver, we also have loads of corresponding metallic products across our making essentials and on our effects range as well. So things like our luster wax come in rose gold, gold and silver, and they match perfectly in colour and tone to the shrink plastic. So I'm literally just going to take a little bit on the edge of my finger, and what I like to do is I like to just run it over the edge. I'll actually take the one that we've just shrunk down. And you just apply it to the edge, and it just means that then you can't see the clear plastic on the edges if you don't want to see that. And the luster wax adheres really beautifully to that shrink plastic. And you can even bring it up onto the front if you wanted to, just ever so slightly. And then you have them really nicely finished off around the edge, and then you'll end up with something that looks like that. So you can see the edges are fully covered in that rose gold luster wax, and you can't see the kind of plastic edges at all. So that's all finished off in the exact same colour tone, because let me just grab some tissue, because they're made to correspond with all of the metallics. So they also work with our opulent cardstock. So again, they come in silver, gold, rose gold. They also come in a couple of other tones, the opulent cardstock does, but obviously that's going to work beautifully with the tones of the shrink plastic. And then what I've actually done is I've taken the picture of my best friend's lovely little girl, and I backed it onto some of this is the matte rose gold cardstock. I think I might have a sheet of it down here actually. Let me grab some. There we go. So this is the rose gold, the matte rose gold. So I've just backed it onto there because obviously I'm still keeping with those rose gold tones, and they work really nicely with the rose gold shrink plastic, and the same goes for the gold opulent cardstock and the gold shrink plastic and the silver as well. So I'm just in keeping with all of that kind of colour theme, and then we can start to apply those onto our card. So let's pop this one down first. And it's a really, really simple card make when you start to put it all together, but it just looks really nice because everything is going to be really prominent and stand out really, really nicely. If you're sticking down the shrink plastic to a card back or something like that, a hot glue gun is going to be the best way to go. So I've got mine heating up over here. So I've got a hot glue gun and a hot glue gun stand, and they're just going to work perfectly because obviously it is a plastic. Something like our express glue is not going to keep it in place permanently, or like our tape or something like that. So a hot glue gun is going to be perfect for this kind of thing. So I'm just going to place these down at the bottom. Like so, and just use the hot glue gun to stick them down, and it's going to make them slightly stick out as well, which I think is going to work great. So you just want a blob of hot glue, and then just stick that onto your card front. And the good thing about hot glue is you have a couple of minutes to play around with the positioning as well while it dries. It just helps a lot. And there we go. You just want to keep sticking those down. This would work really nicely, say if you've got a dark background and with the gold you've cut some stars or something like that. You could put stars in the night sky. But obviously I wanted to show you guys how you could print on it, so I thought the Scrabble letters were a perfect idea. Okay, the last one. How cute is that? Super cute. The only thing that I would do now just to finish it off is to use some of our sequins and beads. Again, they are in the perfect colourway. There's rose gold, gold and silver sequins. There's also loads of other colours as well, but I want to stick with that rose gold theme. And there's 5 different types of sequins, so you can just use whichever ones you want. I can use our curved tip tweezers just to sit those down. If you're working with smaller pieces of shrink plastic as well, these curved tip tweezers are great for that. So just bear that in mind if you're working with something quite a lot smaller than what I am today. These would be great for handling little bits of shrink plastic. So I'm just going to stick a few of these down, and then we'll come to the end and I'll show off a couple more of the makes. Okay, so I think I'm happy with the amount of sequins that I've got on there, but this is the kind of thing that you will end up with. So we've got our gorgeous picture and our amazing glittery Scrabble letters, and then a couple of sequins in the corresponding colours, just to finish it all off in that gorgeous rose gold tone. How gorgeous these glittery shrink plastic Scrabble letters though. They're amazing. They really shine against the light, and with that glitter obviously it's not going to go anywhere. It's fully on there, and they're really nice and prominent and sturdy on your card, or if you're going to make something like I said, jewellery or something like that, it's going to be perfect because it's going to have that nice finish, but it's going to have that really nice sturdy finish as well. So that is the rose gold one. Like I said, I did have the other ones that I showed you previously. I'm just going to grab those again just for reference. So we've got the silver and the gold. So you can see the gold cardstock, opulent cardstock on the gold one over there, and then on the silver one I used some of the silver sequins, and I actually used some of our decorative foil sheets in silver as well. So there's loads of different corresponding products in our effects and our making essentials in the rose gold, the silver and the gold that all work perfectly alongside this. And then obviously things like your glue gun and your shrink plastic accessory kit is going to be perfect when you're working with our brand new shrink plastic. So that is everything from me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me and following along and learning about our brand new shrink plastic. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much.